to Ashling's Holistic Health Show. I'm Aisling Fitzgibbon, holistic nutrition coach and occupational therapist. This show brings you the best tools and ideas for you to take your health into your own hands, your true place of power. So, hi Alison, thank you for joining me on my podcast today.
Oh, hi, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to having a chat.
Yeah, so for everyone listening, I have today with me Alison Reid, and you are a life and fertility coach based in Dublin, but you work internationally.
That's right. I work with my clients one-to-one. If we can do face-to-face, great, but I also work on Skype and also over the telephone as well.
Lovely. So can you tell me, how did you become this person? How did you, what journey led you to pursue this career that you're doing now?
Sure. It was really my own, I suppose, arduous journey to motherhood. I guess from beginning to end, it took me, 5 years. It was, I suppose, a journey that I suppose came as a huge shock to us. I never had any kind of health issues previously. I guess my plan, and we all have a plan growing up, was to find my prince and get married and have children and live happily ever after. And I met my prince, and I had my big day out and our wedding, and we got married. And, I think I'd even tried to think about kind of conceiving 2 or 3 months before that,
yeah.
so that the wedding dress would still fit, just in case.
Yeah.
And I was a honeymoon baby, so I had huge expectations that I was going to have a honeymoon baby.
Yeah.
Working with that, so I was kind of preconditioned to think that was going to happen for me. And we started trying, as you do as newlyweds, and quite soon after, about 6 months, I kind of began to think, I think there's something not right here. I was 35, probably heading towards 36 at that stage.
Yeah.
Of Dublin. So, my mom and her sisters, they never really had any problems. So the warning growing up was, you be careful, we're very fertile, and take precautions. So again, that was kind of embedded in my mind. But 6 months after getting married, nothing was happening. So I guess the first port of call at that stage was the GP. And I think I'd heard, if you're trying for 6 months at over 35, you need to talk to a GP if nothing's happening. So the GP was fine and did some of the regular early tests. And nothing really showed up. Everything kind of looked normal. And then, kind of go home, try harder kind of approach, which was hard, because you kind of hoped there was a magic pill or there was going to be something wrong, a firm diagnosis to work with. But eventually, I think about 10 months later, we were referred on to one of the maternity hospitals up here that has a fertility clinic attached. And we started down that road then. So a long road ensued, and I won't get into the detail yet. Maybe it'll evolve as we talk. So it was really that journey. After several rounds of IUI, several rounds of IVF, a missed miscarriage. I finally did have twin girls back in 2013. So they've just turned 4. So we were totally blessed. But as it was a long road. It was 5 years of emotional hell. It's probably the best way to describe it. I'm not going to understate it. I definitely at the time totally underestimated the impact of infertility on my life, on my family life with my husband. And I also I found it hard to get the right support, to be honest with you. And really those two things were the key motivation for me to, I suppose, continue my career as a life and fertility coach. I read about this concept actually I think I was pregnant, and when I read about what a fertility coach does, I was like, why did I not know about this sooner? It would have been perfect for me to get support and to help me navigate my journey, because nobody around me had ever been there before. So I didn't have a best friend I could ask, what's it like to do that, or how was it for you? So I was totally on my own that way. My friends and family tried to be supportive, don't get me wrong, but until you wear a pair of shoes, it's very hard to know what it's really, really, really like. So so I think that was kind of the real kind of motivation. I was already a coach anyway through my career as a HR I guess professional. Spent a lot of time coaching people just on a different topic, and I found it quite easy to transition my skill set over to the fertility side, and really just my personal experience absolutely bolstered that.
Yeah.
And I think it was when I did my training, I did some training in the US with Dr. Alison. She, that training, it's on mind body side of infertility, that really solidified for me what I thought I knew and what I had experienced. And it was like just the penny dropped, and I thought, wow, this is just something that is so needed. So it's looking at your life whilst you're going through infertility, and making sure you're getting the best out of yourself, your mind and your body, to support yourself and to achieve the ultimate outcome of hopefully a pregnancy and a baby.
Yeah, because I could imagine like going through that experience, that you're so attached to the outcome that it must be like a constant state of anxiety, like when will it happen? So I obviously haven't had that experience myself, but I think for women listening, it's like, if that is their experience, then it's invaluable to have support to navigate that journey, because it's very hard to do that on your own, when you're trying to just, live life and experience all of the range of emotions that go with that.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's totally overwhelming. It's scary. It's isolating. You kind of don't really want to go out anymore. You feel like the odd one out. I hated to tell people what was happening in our lives, because I felt, God, we're relatively newly married. We can't get pregnant. People think we have a problem with our sex life. There's all the different things that go through your mind. And a month in, month out, when your period comes, sadly, you're reminded of what a failure you are, or what, and that's how it feels. You feel like you're failing your husband, you're failing as a woman. It's huge. And you don't necessarily feel that in the first 6 months, but after a couple of, years or a few months later, it's really, really a big weight to carry around with you. And I think in one of my blogs, I think I summed it up. I think I counted, I had, whatever, when you add up all the months, it was like 52 disappointments, rather huge disappointments every time your period comes, not to mention all the IVFs and all of that. So that level of disappointment is really hard to deal with, and the uncertainty is the biggest one of all, not knowing when. And we are control freaks.
Exactly.
We like to control things, so that uncertainty is the biggest thing. I think the hardest thing to deal with.
And so how would you kind of, like, in your own practice, how do you help women deal with that uncertainty? Like, what kind of things do you suggest for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, there's kind of two sides to it. I mean, there's no guarantee, as we know, at the end of this, but it's trying to figure out to control what you can control. There's many factors that influence our fertility. So I guess there's external factors. So everything from our environment to our food that we eat, our physical conditions, any kind of ailments we may have, and then on the inside or on the internal side of things, then you have your your beliefs, your emotions, and so on. So it's really looking at it holistically and looking at all of those aspects and thinking, okay, I can control how I think ultimately. So much you can kind of, I suppose, focus on that will help you support yourself both physically and mentally. And for me, it's about working towards making, the best outcome most possible or more possible. And I think when you focus on all of that good stuff, yoga, meditation, all of these things that you can do to support yourself, mentally and physically, you're going to be in a better place, even in the face of adversity, even if the IVF cycle doesn't work or you get your period when you don't want it, So I think it is, for me, working with the uncertainty is just trying to focus on what you can control. I at the beginning of my journey definitely thought I'd go into a fertility clinic, put my feet in the stirrups, and they do what they did. They do their magic, and the IVF were 3 little magic pills. And sadly, it took me a while, a couple of years, to realize, actually, you know what, that's not the case. I was not engaged. I was taking a back seat. I had to lead from the front, and I had to, that penny dropped, and I had a very tough conversation with the doctor one day. I said, I don't know why this is all going wrong. On the face of it, we were relatively straightforward. Yes, we needed, fertility treatment, but we were relatively straightforward. And she said, there's so much we can do, but it's all money. And I said, okay, let's take a step back. What are the top 3 things or tests you would recommend for me to do next? Take money out of the equation and let's go with that. So that was kind of a real turning point for me. It was when I started to take control and lead from the front. And doctors are great, do not get me wrong, and my intent is not to scold them. I definitely needed their help, but you do need to think holistically, you need to think integratively, and you need to think mind and body, not just your reproductive system.
Yeah, that's wonderful, because it's like, as you say, I think there is that kind of element. If there's something not right, I'll go in and say the doctor or whoever, the health professional will help me. But I feel in this whole experience, I suppose, it's to teach that you're in the driver's seat of how you are and how you're showing up and how your body is feeling, and how basically like nobody really can do that for you, only yourself at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And I think the hard thing, when the uncertainty is bad enough for a couple of months, but Dr. Alison, who is a renowned psychologist in this area, and it's one to look up, and she's got some great books out there and tips and information, but she has done research in the in the US, and it's federally funded research, so a big piece of research. I think Johnson & Johnson were on board as well, so massive piece of research. And they basically analysed those who've been trying to conceive for a prolonged period, prolonged being about 2 to 3 years. So, it's a lot of people fall into that category, and whether they're trying to conceive naturally or with fertility treatment. And they measured the stress, anxiety and depression levels for these groups. And basically the results of the research were that those stress, anxiety and depression levels were very similar, at the same level, to those who were diagnosed with potentially terminal illnesses. So it's quite shocking.
Yeah.
I have done an awful lot of thinking about that research, because part of me at first, I was thinking, God, that seems a bit wrong. God, I think I'd be worse off if I was diagnosed with, that level of an illness. And, there's worse things out there, and I have my health and so on. But, really, for me, the nub of all of this, and it took me years to figure this out, and it was only after I've had my children the penny drop. But, we as humans, it's natural within us to reproduce. It's just part of us. Go back to the beginning of time, we were put on this planet to reproduce. And when that is a possibility of reproduction or is taken away from us, or it looks like it's in jeopardy, what that to us as humans is huge, and it's that yearning inside to be a mother that just propels you. And people say to me, I think I'm going mad, and I'm like, you're not going mad. It's just this yearning inside you to be a mom. It's a huge thing. You can't just switch off the switch. No,
it's like it's primitive, isn't it? It's like a primitive.
It's in us. It's innate within us to reproduce. So when I look back at the research that Dr. Domar did, it does make sense to me. It does make sense that it's that big of a deal for people. And I think some people, don't get that. And then you might have a mom or an aunt or someone saying, oh, just relax, it'll happen. And it's just like the worst thing.
Absolutely.
Someone, because, after you're not getting pregnant for 6 months or a year, all of those negative thoughts creep into your mind. I'm a failure, I'm ashamed. There's something wrong with me. I will add, Aisling, as well, that, and the World Health Organization define infertility as a medical condition.
Okay.
And it's funny, we don't talk about it like that. We don't think about it like that.
No.
If you were diagnosed with, I don't know, diabetes tomorrow, you'd be telling all your friends and your mom and your dad, and they'd be all so supportive, and oh, you poor thing, and you get that love and that empathy. But with this, we don't do that. So we kind of isolate ourselves, and we think, no, I can't talk about this.
Yeah.
I've thought about that too. I wonder, is it a society thing in Ireland? We historically don't talk about these things, and sex and all of the,
Yeah, I think any relation to sex and the female body and stuff like that is like a no-go area.
Isn't it? I kind of been looking for the answers, and I think as I've worked with my clients, when we talk about some of this stuff, it really helps them, because it's just like, oh yeah, I am normal and I am human, and this is why, and I'm not going crazy, because I think that's the biggest fear. I mean, we all, I had a client this morning, she's like, when I look back, I think people think I'm going mad. The closest 50% of my clients are ladies who are trying to have a second child. And then it's, people might say, well, they've already got one. Should they not be thankful? It is not that simple. That yearning kicks in again. That innate thing within us to reproduce just kicks in and takes over, and you want to do it again. So, it's as big as primary infertility and the volume of it out there.
And I suppose as well, if you've had a previous pregnancy, there's almost an expectation And of course, you'll be able to do it again, like,
Yeah.
because you've already done it. Yeah. So it's probably even more stressful in that case.
I do. I often say that to my clients with secondary infertility, don't underestimate it and don't brush it aside, because it is, I think it's bad. It's worse, than primary in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
And because you've been there and you kind of know what you're missing out on. You feel now what's wrong with my body. So it's difficult.
So what's the kind of, like, in terms of when you start working with somebody, like, what's the kind of process? Do they contact you through your website, or how do you kind of initiate that kind of the start of that relationship?
Yeah, I obviously have some details on my website about what I do, and in summary, it's really about giving them the teaching them the skills to cope and adapt with infertility,
Mm-hmm.
and how to live with it. It's hard to live with and to get on with your normal life, because you're trying to solve this big huge riddle and problem in your life as well. So that's kind of a big part of it. And helping them navigate some of the clinical terms, the clinics, how to choose, all of that type of thing, difficulties with the relationship. So it's really personal to each person, no one size fits all. I usually do a questionnaire for them to fill out in the beginning, just to get kind of case history and so on. And then we'd have a one-to-one on the phone, just an initial kind of, I suppose, consultation call. No cost for that, just really to figure out if I have what they want, and we can work together and so on, to talk about how I can help them. And then we, if they engage, I do a couple of things. So I have an infertility focus morning, which is a 3-hour blitz on their whole lifestyle, the stress management piece, looking at what they can do proactively from that side of things. And then we'd have a follow-up about a couple of weeks later, just to ensure traction on that. I also do what I call a heart-to-heart as well, which is a little bit more ad hoc, if you just had a bad moment or a bad day. But the people who avail of that, I've usually met with at some point, so it's a handy one to have. And then the more intense kind of coaching program is about 6 to 10 coaching sessions over a period of maybe 3 to 6 months, depending on the person. And that really is to initiate very deep change. To be honest with you. So it really just depends on each person and where they're at. And obviously those going through fertility treatment, it can be a very long process. So, they may want to stretch that out over time, and that's fine too. But it's just getting them practical advice and emotional support ultimately.
Yeah, because I think up to the point of hearing about you, this isn't something that I've heard. Like, I've never really met anyone else that does this type of coaching. So are there many people, like, in Ireland is this like a new profession that's kind of here in Ireland, or
hopefully we'll see more of it. Aisling, I mean, where I came across it was, needless to say, the US. I was reading an article from a US fertility coach on what it is. So it's quite big over there. But I think generally they seem to be ahead of the game. And a lot of this type of thing as well. So the UK does quite a lot of it as well, but different aspects of fertility coaching. So sometimes you might find somebody who was a nurse in a previous life, or a midwife, and they left that and they've trained in reflexology maybe, or acupuncture, or some other different kind of type of holistic treatment. They combine all of that together, so that's quite a different aspect of it as well. But I guess what I'm trained as is a life, business and executive coach. The theory behind coaching, taking away the fertility piece, is really the skill set that you learn and that you develop while you're going through that training can be applied to any problem in life, or any time of adversity in life. So whether it's, do I make a career change or don't I, or I don't know, do we move to another country, and looking at all of that, some big decisions in life. It's really to facilitate a journey of deeper self-awareness. And to give you, be sure, I'm not going to tell my clients what to do. And that's the big thing with coaching. It's really supporting them on their journey. But because I've been through the fertility thing myself, I can bring a lot more to the table to really help them. So that's where I differ. I'm not medically trained, and I always point out to my clients in the beginning, I am not medically trained. Yes, obviously I know about all the drugs and the treatments and so on, but I'm interested in it. I read about it. I keep in touch with it. I have a network of people that I learn from. So I keep in touch with that and what's going on, and I learn from my clients as well. It's very much a two-way thing. It's developing all the time. So I think we will see more kind of coaches coming into the general kind of domain for support as well.
Yeah. You might be involved in training at some point down the line.
You never know. You never know.
So,
I will point out, Aisling, sorry to interrupt. There is the National Infertility Support and Information Group, NISIG, NISIG.ie, for anyone who's listening. And they also offer support, and they often have meetings around the country.
Okay.
So that's like, I suppose, our state, kind of support in this area. They're not very well known. Again, I didn't find out about them until I'd had my children.
Okay.
Sadly, but another resource for people as well.
Yeah, well, I think I can include the link to that anyway underneath the podcast. Yeah, so people who are listening then can find it. Yeah, because it's nice for people to kind of have just point them into the direction of the resources that are available at the moment, and kind of taking a lot of the guesswork out of it, because yourself, it's like when you're, I suppose, very emotionally upset about if you're not able to conceive or trying to do all these different things, it's like almost you don't have much bandwidth in yourself to find all the information. It's, like I'm sure, like you probably noticed, like after having your children, you're a bit more relaxed into looking into the research, and you kind of have more headspace to actually, to really look at it without having that emotional attachment.
Yeah.
When you are kind of in the thick of it.
I mean, I think with any problem in life or challenge, or if you're suffering, from bereavement or, from a recent bereavement or anything like that, like you're so tired and drained that you can't think straight. We don't think rationally. And I always say to my clients as well, I am going to be open and very honest with you. I'm going to hold up the mirror in your life. You might not like what you see and what you hear, but as an external person, I'm not emotionally attached to them. So it's easy for me to say, have a look at this and see what you think. And, we look at different ways of, if their day is hectic, how they take 20 minutes out to just have a walk along the river and chill out, a busy, stressful day, and what the benefits of that are for them. So,
So in terms of, because you were saying that you write a blog, so that's another place where people can find, I suppose, more about you and the kind of the way, the way in which that you're kind of working and the different research that you come across.
Yeah, absolutely. I have blogs up there, everything from, how to manage your relationship while you're going through infertility, through to how to deal with a failed IVF or failed fertility treatment cycle. So it's quite broad ranging, and I try to add to it. I will admit I've been a bit lazy recently, but just have a lot going on personally, but I'm hoping to get back into my groove with the blogs in September. And I think people find them really helpful. And even with my clients, I send them on to them and so on, because it's, it is hard. And I think particularly the relationship side of things, many women just get so frustrated with their partner because they're not on the same wavelength, and they don't seem to want this as passionately as they do. And it's not that they don't want it, it's just everybody reacts to challenges differently, and it's really just to understand that as well. So it's the old, I think, men are from Venus and women are from Mars, or vice versa.
I think men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Different even though we're the same species, we're different breeds.
Very different breeds, so and I think it's refreshing for my clients to hear, that was my husband too. He was so laid, he was so laid back, and I used to think, God, do you really care at all? And hand on heart, he did care, and he just wanted what I wanted, and wanted me to be happy, which is just beautiful. But at times I just felt like, come on, cry, you cry too, not just me crying.
I know, yeah. I think it's just refreshing, I think, as you say, that for women that are going through this experience, that they know that there's nothing wrong with them, like the way they're feeling, like that's completely natural. I think just to be told that as well is very kind of reassuring, that you haven't lost your mind, that you're not insane, and it's completely almost expected to feel like that when you are going through that challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I would say a big part of my work is absolutely normalizing all of this for people, and they get great comfort from it then, that, they know, okay, God, are those thoughts normal? Are other ladies feeling that way, or other men feeling that way? So, it does give them great comfort that it's just a normal part of this. And, it's like that grieving process, there's various stages in it. And I think you can nearly apply that to this, because people have miscarriages, you know, all of that side of it is huge as well. It's not as simple as just getting the treatment and it working, sadly. And each of those little losses, or even every time your period comes, that's a huge disappointment to deal with and to take on board, you know.
Yeah.
And people become so negative because you think, oh, it's never going to work no matter what I do. And
Yeah.
that is good for you, because you know, it's what we call I suppose a self-limiting belief.
Yeah.
You know, when you're rowing against yourself, you want your body to do something down in your reproductive system, but in your mind you're telling it it's not going to work. So there's a huge conflict there. So a lot of the work I do is working through those conflicts with people. And obviously age is one of the biggest self-limiting beliefs in this game, because of the number 40, you know. And as you know, Janet Jackson and co and a few of them have stretched the boundaries to 50. Well, I don't know about that, but yeah, just from a tiredness perspective, I don't think I'd be physically able to be a mother at 50. It's hard enough at 40. But you know, you do, if you have that kind of in your head that 40's coming and that's the end and it's over. It's not, you know, it's so not these days. It's not. I would push the 40 to 45 personally now. I think
definitely,
so much more you can do.
And I also believe that women nowadays are aging like much better in, you know, the way in which people take care of themselves, and are much more conscious of exercise and those things that probably in previous generations wasn't there. So kind of, if you were 40, I don't know, say my grandmother's generation, you'd be like really old, whereas now you're like, you're a young one, you're young at 40. Like,
I think they used to call it over the hill.
Oh my God,
over the hill.
But also, I don't know, is this correct? Correct me if I'm wrong, but is there a term, and they're calling like women over a certain age a geriatric mother? Because I've heard other women in America talk about that, and I just thought that is absolutely just really not a nice term at all. I was like,
it's horrific. I mean, I just think it's absolutely horrific. And, you know, the other thing is, this whole kind of thing, women are choosing to be mothers later in life. On the whole, there's no choice in the matter. I didn't meet my husband until, you know, into my 30s. So by the time we got married, and in my book, I wanted to do it right and get married, and that's how I wanted it to be. Everyone is different. Some people do put their career first, but it's very, very rare. It's an actual choice. It's just circumstance.
Exactly.
You know, and I don't think, yes, there's a group of people out there who think, oh, I'll just put it on hold and I'll do IVF and I'll be fine. And that's a bit naive. I wouldn't wish IVF on anyone. I honestly think it should be a last resort. It's horrific, and emotionally, physically, mentally. So, you know, something that you need to have exhausted all other options before you jump into that ring, because I think it becomes addictive as well. And that's the other side of it. But, you know, it's very harsh on people to think that, you know, you're just because you're a mom over 40, you're a geriatric mother. But I've heard it's out there.
So I think it's like, and as the work that you're doing goes out there more into the world, it's like, I think it's kind of taking the stigma out of this whole experience and kind of making it, as you say, very normal. And like in the same way as like that mental health is becoming much more accepted because of all the work that's been done. Many different avenues, you know. I
mean, I just hope in Ireland, like we obviously Bressie I think he's been a great advocate for mental health, and I just hope that someday some, you know, star like Bressie is going to come forward on the fertility side of things. I don't think we've had that person yet in Irish society. I know of a couple of people maybe who, you know, are in the limelight and been there, but we don't have a Bressie yet in this space. And I you know, to get to that point would be great. And he talks about, and I've used it in some of my blogs, he talks about mental fitness rather than mental health. And this is, it's about that. It's about your mind is a muscle, just like every other muscle in your body. So if you're going to the gym, you're pumping your muscles to get fit. You have to work on your mind muscle as well. It can be trained. You can do a lot with it, you know, to give yourself a better quality of life. So that's important too. But a lot of the work I do, and when I talk, I've been on the radio before, and I'm actually there's a series coming out on fertility in Ireland on the TV later this year, and I'm going to be in that too. But again, it's around just raising awareness and breaking down the taboo, and let's talk about it. And it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's a health issue. It's a medical condition. Let's just, you know, put it out there.
That's brilliant. That's wonderful. Yeah. So it's good to know you and be able to point people in your direction anyway.
Great, so, Aisling. Yeah. And an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thanks a million for your time, and I look forward to hopefully meeting you in person sometime.
Great, Aisling. I look forward to that.